Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Hot Rod Summer, and I'm going to be sipping on some hot coffee. So if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, fluorescent orange, purple violet, green oxide, Mars black, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, fire red, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 8 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 2 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you could switch those up too if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying them. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paint and the brushes and the pencil and all the good stuff in between. So that's down there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the first step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are purple, orange, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with my purple and my orange on my brush at the top. And then as I transition down towards the bottom of my canvas, I'm going to stop using purple and I'm going to replace it with some white. So what'll happen is my sky or my background will get lighter and lighter as it comes down my canvas. So I'm going to start with purple and orange on my brush at the same time, and I'm just going to go left to right. You could really have this as light or as dark or as vibrant as you want it to be. Yours could be more on the purple side, it could be more on the orange side, whatever is visually appealing for you. Have fun with it. So that's how I'm going to start. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white now with my orange, and that is going to start my transition as I come down my sky. And if you want it lighter or darker, or you want to add more purple or orange, I just added a little bit more purple and orange to it because I want it a little bit darker as it's coming down here. I want it to look like a nice summer, either sunrise or a sunset, as somebody is getting ready to go to the beautiful ocean in their convertible car. So you can really imagine this to be whatever way that you want, but I just keep kind of adding the orange, purple, and white to get it to be whatever lightness or darkness that I want as it's coming down. But in a minute I will be using primarily orange and white, and then as I come down towards the bottom, that's when I'm going to stop using the orange and I will start using just white. And again, because I'm not washing my brush throughout this process, what's happening is the colors will naturally just kind of work themselves off of my brush. So if I want to stop the purple from appearing, I just stop picking it up. And then as I'm coming down my canvas, it will work its way off of my brush. So again, right now I'm just picking up orange and white. And I'm going to get it to go a little bit lighter as it comes down my canvas. Right now I'm just going to start to pick up white paint. And if I feel that I need to add any more of the color the orange or the purple, I will certainly do that, but this is looking pretty cool to me. And you can tell that as I do this, I kind of work my way back up and down as I'm going through the process, so that way I get the colors to blend in nicely with each other. I think I'm actually going to add a tiny bit more purple to my sky here, just so it gives it a little bit more of a lavendery kind of feel. So just adding a touch more purple onto here. And again, you can just adjust yours as you see fit. Maybe you want yours to look like these delicate kind of clouds floating by. Maybe you want yours to be really vibrant. You can certainly make it whatever tonal value that you want, or whatever color you would like. So as I come down here, you can see it's getting lighter and lighter, but I don't want it to go fully white on me down at the bottom. So if by the time I get down to the bottom, if I can't detect any of my other colors coming off of my brush, then I would find myself picking up a little bit more of one or both of those colors. But I still have a little bit more coming off of my brush at this point as I'm picking up the white, so I think I'm pretty safe. And then if you want to, you can certainly do a second coat to, let this dry, see if it dries in the value that you would like or the color that you would like. And if you want, you can certainly do another layer on it. But we are going to be using our pencil for the next step. So once you've got your sky all nice and painted in, or your background, you can wash or put your large brush aside, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're drawing an outline for the base shapes of our car. So outline for our car, but we're going to leave the windshield for later, and some of the smaller details we'll leave for later. So we're just looking to give ourselves a basic shape for the car with outlining of like the headlights and the tires and stuff like that. So I do want to forewarn you that before you start this step that you dry your canvas, because we're going to be drawing outline on it, and it's much easier to draw on dry paint than it is to draw on wet paint. So you can either take that extra long break if you'd like to, or you can find a fanning method with a paper towel, or you can blow on it or whatever, or you can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer and get it dry that way. Maybe yours is already dry by now, but if it's not, I recommend getting it dry. So I'm going to give you a couple of dots that we're going to make. I'll tell you where to make the dots, that we'll connect them, and then we'll make subsequent pieces off of the first shape that we make. So the first shape that we're going to make is going to be a very wide, almost an oval type of shape. This is going to be the front end of the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself two sets of dots on the left and the right hand side. This is about, I would say, about 2.5 inches from the edge of my canvas. The top one is about 6 inches up my canvas. So this is going to be my first dot in through here. So if this is about the halfway area of my canvas, somewhere in through here, and this is about, I would say, a quarter way, I'm a little bit higher than that. So a quarter is going to be 5 inches, so we're at 6 inches. And then I'm going about halfway between that mark and the bottom of my canvas, maybe a little shy of it, and I'm going to make myself another mark in through here. So I'm going down maybe about 2.5 to 3 inches and making a mark. Then what I can do to make sure that I do the same thing on the other side, because yours may not be exactly where mine are, you can use your brush or any kind of long thing as a measuring tool, and you can actually measure where you put those dots. So I can see that I have it a little bit higher than this one and a little bit higher than here. So then I just go on the other side of my canvas about 2.5 inches away from the edge, and I make myself 2 more dots. So that'll give me equal dots on those 2 sides. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of my canvas, and wherever you put this one in through here, you can come into the center of your canvas, and then you're going to come up maybe about 1.5 inches. Give yourself another marker. You can make that one kind of a little horizontal just to give you a good visual. And then the same thing over here, I'm going to come straight in from here to the center of my canvas, and then I'm going to come down about 1/2 inch and give myself a marker in through here. These other marks that you see, we'll be using those in a minute, but right now you should have 6 marks, 2 on the sides and 1 here and here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect those with a kind of an arcing type of line. It doesn't need to be a very firm arcing line or steep, I should say. You just want it to be just a casual kind of arc that meets one to the other. And you'll do the same thing at the bottom. So I'm going to take this one and this is going to be less of an arc because we only went down about 1/2 of an inch instead of 1.5 inches like we did on the top one. So something like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the top two here to the bottom two here with a little bit of an arcing line itself. So we're in essence kind of creating almost an oval, but this is more of almost a vertical line with just a little tiny bit of an arc in through there. So think of it as a vertical line and you're just giving it a tiny bit of an arc, not much at all. Then what I'm going to do is I am going to come about, I would say almost 1 inch up from here, make myself another little marker, and then I'm going to go almost about halfway between here and here, make myself a little marker, and do the same thing over on the other side. And I'm going to connect these three with a similar type of arcing line in through here. So something like this will give me that line in through there. And then I need to make one last little sliver of an area down below here. So I'm not even going to mark myself. I'm just going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch of an area in through here, just kind of following the contour of the line that I already made. So something like that will do. And then what we're going to do is we are going to connect, we're going to put the top portion of the hood of our car on. So you're going to come in from the left-hand side of here, maybe about 2.5 inches. Give yourself a little bit of a marker in through there. And of course you can use your pencil or anything that you want to give yourself a ruler kind of point, and do the same thing over on this side. Make yourself a mark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up from here, maybe about, I would say 1.5 inches, make myself another marker in through here. This is going to be the hood of my car, but I want it to look like it's going back farther. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 diagonal lines from here going up, but I don't want them to go any higher than this. So this is going to take on a similar arc to this, but it's got to stop short of these points. So if you just kind of make yourself a similar arc and stop about, I would say about 1 inch shy of this mark in through here, that's going to give you a good diagonal type of perspective. So I stopped about 1 inch shy of these marks. Now I can just connect those two like this and like this. That's going to give us the hood of the car. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this corner and this corner to these 2 corners. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do a little bit of a bump, and then I'm going to do kind of a diagonal line to meet in through here. So there's no really dots per se to doing this. I'm just going to kind of make myself a little bit of an arc that will go about as high as here. It might go a little bit higher, but not much. And then I'm just going to scoop it down and meet it into this corner in through here. And then I'm going to attempt to do a similar type of marking over on the other side. So these 2 lines should be pretty similar. And if you've got it rounded more than mine, that's okay. This is an imaginary car. I'm not modeling it after any specific car. So if your pieces of your car end up a little bit different than mine, it's okay. It's imaginary. You can make it a little bit different. Then what I'm going to do is I've got to make myself a couple of headlights. So my headlights are going to go in this area in through here. So I'm going to start at this corner, and I'm going to give myself a curved line that comes just about over to the edge of my car in through here, and just giving myself a little bit of a circular shape. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Our headlights are actually going to be glowing, so if it's not perfect, no worries. I am going to erase this line in between, so it makes it easier to paint on my headlight. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on this side, trying to keep it about the same shape as the other one. That's the beauty of pencils. You can always utilize your pencil to correct any non-perfect shapes. And again, paint is going to help us correct these as well. And then I'm just going to erase this little line in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little bit of a area where we're going to put the grill in front of our in the front of our car. So I'm going to come down from here, maybe about a half of an inch, quarter of an inch to a half of an inch, make myself a little bit of a marker. And this is going to travel the same arc as this one, only it's going to stop a little bit before we get to the headlight. So something like this. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be painting it, and we'll have lots of opportunity to make any corrections that we need to. And then I'm going to come down to about the same, wherever the bottom of my headlights go. You can just kind of travel across into the middle of your car, somewhere right around here. And that's going to give you the bottom part of the grill. So I can use this same arc, something like this. And again, doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a little bit of an arc in through here. And then of course I'll close off my edges, similar to how we closed off the side of the car. And again, no worries if it's not perfect. So something like that. And then what I'll do is I am going to put my tires on. We're just going to be seeing the little front part of the tire. So all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be coming straight down from the kind of the outside edge of my side of my car in through here. I'm going to come straight down to about, I would say about 1.5 inches away from the bottom of my canvas, so somewhere around there. So I'm going to come down like this from the outside of my car, like this. And when I get down about that far, I'm just going to kind of curve in the edge of that tire. I'm going to come straight across, maybe I would say almost, if this is the center of your headlight, maybe about down from the center of that headlight, come straight across, and then make yourself a little bit of a curve at that corner, and then just go straight up. So something like that. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So from the outside of my car, I'm going to bring this straight down. So that way the little corners of the front of the car are going to be in front of the tire. So once I get about 1.5 inches away from the bottom of my canvas, I curve it a little bit, come straight across for maybe about 1.5 inches, and then somewhere about the center, maybe a little bit to the right, or a little off center is fine, and then just kind of come up. And you could certainly, to see if your tires are about the same width, you can certainly use anything that you want to just kind of give them a quick measure. Mine are pretty similar. And that's all we're going to be doing for the shape of our car, or the outline of our car. So you can do any little adjustments that you want. You can put your pencil away. We're going to use our medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat on our car. So we're going to be using black, red, and white. And we're just doing some base coats here, so there's nothing too fancy about it. So I'm going to be doing my red first. So all of my red sections are going to be my hood. And I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just bringing my red to my outline. Sometimes I'll slow down a little bit so I can give myself a nice smooth line at that edge, but this is just the first coat, so if you don't get it perfect on this step, it's all right, because you'll have plenty of opportunity to correct it. But I am kind of just slowing down as I go towards the edges, trying to get all of my pencil covered. My red paint, and I'm sure yours as well, will be translucent, which means you're going to be able to see through it, and you'll be able to see your pencil marks underneath it, which is all right at this point, especially for this line in through here and the edges. If your red paint is not translucent like mine is, and the one line that you'll want to definitely be able to see is this one in through here, which is where your hood is going to meet the front of your car. So if you needed to, you could certainly do like a little darker line, or leave a little space between your hood and the front of your car so you don't lose that line. But if you do, it's all right. I'll guide you through how to re-establish that area when we get to it. And then I'm just painting in a red layer in through here. I'm going all the way to where my headlights are. I'm going all the way around here, bringing that edge of the car just to the edge of the headlight. Our headlights are going to be glowing. So again, if you get to your headlight and you don't do a perfect painting around it, that's going to be okay, because we're going to be messing it up later anyways. We're going to be putting a big glowing area around these headlights. So if yours, you know, isn't perfect, it's all right. We've got stuff to do around it. And you could bring this red all the way around the headlight if you want to, but I'm leaving a little bit of an area that doesn't have the red. So that way I'm ensured to have a nice glowy part to my light. And then I'm just bringing this entire section all the way down to my line that we had established down in through here. And you can certainly use a good amount of paint so you have a continual brush stroke throughout that, you know, you can bring that brush stroke farther. That's why I like to use these kind of longer round brushes, because they tend to hold a good amount of paint in them as I'm going through this process. And again, perfection is not necessary during this step, but if you can, the smoother your edges are on a painting such as this, the more you'll get those details to work themselves out as we go through the painting process. But again, I'm not going for photorealism here. I'm just going for a fun summer style painting. So where my lines would in a photorealistic image need to be perfect, they do not need to be perfect on my painting here. So if you feel that you want yours to be, you can certainly do that. It might just take you a little bit longer to accomplish it. And I'm just bringing this down along the edge and through here. And you may notice every now and again that I am resting my pinky or my hand on my canvas or on my easel. That helps me to stabilize my hand because I have a shaky hand. So that helps me as I'm doing these more cleaner lines, even though that one just went outside my line a little bit. This helps me to stabilize my hand and just kind of be able to travel in a more smooth fashion. And then I'm going to wash my brush for my next color. I'm going to go into my black sections next. So I'm just washing and drying my medium brush, and my black sections are going to be my tires and this bottom strip at the bottom edge of the car. So I'm just going to kind of give myself, and in through here where the tire kind of is underneath this area, and we actually had that outline there, you can go right over that and just bring your tire all the way up, and you'll see, I'll help you to reestablish that corner as we put the bumper on later, but right now we're just going to kind of paint over that guideline, and that'll make our job of painting in this section nice and simple. And then I'm just going to bring it all the way down to the bottom of my tire, trying to keep those rounded corners. And if you wanted to, you could always use a touch of water in your brush, especially when you're working with black and you want to have nice clean edges to it. A touch of water in your brush will definitely allow you to have nice smooth edges to it, where the paint kind of sinks into the canvas and allows you to have that really nice clean edge. And I'm finding that I want to round my corners just a little bit more than I did with my pencil, so I'm just kind of adjusting it as I go. And my pencil mark that I have here, I can just erase later. I'm going to go ahead and do my other tire, and then I'll do that strip right across. So I'm just going to bring this up in through this vicinity, just make sure that I bring it all the way kind of straight down, and then just kind of curve it at the bottom like that. And you know, again, if you don't get the curve at the bottom, or if yours is not exactly as mine, we'll just say that you have a different car and different tires than I do. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Mine is just these big fat meaty tires, and I'm going to do the same thing on this end. I feel like I want my little corner to be a little bit more rounded, so I will end up erasing that little bit of my pencil in a bit, but just making sure that I have it rounded the way that I want to. And I'm just bringing this all the way to the bottom of my tire. And now I'm going to go ahead and do this one strip that goes from one end to the next. So just making sure that I can kind of stay as stable as my hand will allow me to, but again, not terribly concerned if it's not perfect. And then I'm just going to bring this across here, and you might have a good width on your brush that you might be able to push it in exactly the right way, and it just gives you the width that you want. But or you might have to just do some little adjusting like I'm going to do. And then I'm going to, once I've got this line established, I'm going to do my white area. And oh yeah, I've got my little black area to go in where my grill is as well. So once I've got my tires on here, I won't wash my brush. I'm going to go ahead and do the area for the tire. But you can see I'm slowing down a little bit with this line just so I can get it in the area that I want. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then I'm going to color in this entire area where the grill is going to go in a little bit. So again, you can certainly have your edges clean if you want to, but know that we will be doing a bunch of detail on it in a little while. So if you don't get your paint all the way to the edges, or if you have a little bit of space between your red area versus your black area, or your line goes a little bit skewed like mine is going, it's all right. We'll be able to adjust it when we get to the detail section of it. And just making sure I've got this edge over here. And you know, if you decided that you wanted to use a smaller brush or a different type of brush, that's totally fine. You've got to use the tool that works for you. So this tool works for me, but you might want to use, you know, an angled brush or a flat brush. Sometimes the flat brushes with the shorter bristles, those can really help you to get a nice smooth line or a nice seemingly straight line or clean edges to it. So you just got to use whatever tool works for your style of painting or your hand, because everybody's hands work differently. So, and everybody's paint works differently too, depending on the brand that you're using, or depending on, you know, the canvas that you have. If you've gessoed your canvas, or if you're using it straight from the store, the paint, you know, adheres differently. So every brush is going to work differently with whatever combination. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to do my last sections, which are just going to be done with white. So I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm not concerned if it's totally clean or not, because again, we're going to have lots of details on it. So the lights, there's nothing fancy there. I'm just going to paint a white layer, and if I bump into some wet red paint along the edges of them, I'm okay with that, again, because we're going to be doing like a glow around the edges. So I'm just kind of maneuvering my brush in a circular type motion, so that helps me to kind of get a natural type of circle. But I can see over here I've got a little bit that is outside of a normal circle, so we'll just work that into the design. And then I'm going to do the same thing over in this side. So again, just white paint is how I'm doing my my first layer to my headlights. Just making sure I go all the way over to the edge here. And again, if it's not perfectly circular, the glow from the headlights will take care of that when we get to it. And then I have this little section in through here. So the only thing that I'm going to do set different from this section is I'm actually going to pull it out a little bit on the edges here. So I want this to be my bumper later, so I'm just going to pull that out just a little bit past the car. So that way that's going to establish like a three-dimensional kind of look to it. And then I'm just bringing this white all the way across and trying to keep it pretty straight, but you know, if it's not perfect, that's okay. And then again, I'm going to pull this out maybe about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch over here on the right hand side, and then just bring this all the way across. And then we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your base coat for your car. Make any little adjustments that you want. Make it as clean as you want to, or leave it as carefree as it might have come out on your first shot. And then wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm doing the base coat for my surfboard. So you can certainly put anything in your car that you would like. You could put a surfboard or water skis or a cooler or a big inner tube, whatever you want sticking out of your convertible as you're going to the beach. You can make whatever you like. So I'm going to do a surfboard, not that I've ever surfed in my life, but I feel that that's what I want in my car. It's my dream car here. So I'm going to be using blue and white paint, and what I did was I took a little bit of my cobalt blue and I mixed a touch of white paint in it. So it's just a little bit lighter than the cobalt blue. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to give myself a couple of markers. The first marker is going to be a little bit to the right of where this part of the car meets the hood of the car. So somewhere in through here. And then if this is about halfway in the center of your car, you want to go to the left of that, maybe about, I don't know, almost half of an inch to an inch, somewhere in there. And then I'm going to have my surfboard kind of at a diagonal going in this direction. So I'm coming to the left of here, maybe about a half of an inch to an inch, and straight up. So this is coming up maybe about 4 or 5 inches from my car, and that's going to be the tip of my surfboard. And then I'm just going to kind of connect it to this area down in through here with like a curved line, something like that. And then I'll do the same thing over on the other side, just so they kind of look similar to one another. Granted, we could be seeing the surfboard at an angle, but you want the sides to kind of look like they belong together, I guess. And then I'm just painting it in with this nice, vibrant blue. And then once you got your base coat of your surfboard done, we're going to use the same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm painting my palm tree trunks. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors that I'm using are black, brown, and white. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do my base coat with a thin layer of my brown and my black, and then I'll come through and put some little highlights on them. So I'm going to load my brush with brown and black at the same time. I don't need, more of one or the other. I'm just kind of arbitrarily picking up a little bit of both. I'm going to have my trees really big on the outside, and then they're going to progressively get smaller and smaller as they go towards the inside, so it looks like they're getting farther and farther away. So I'm going to give myself my outside trunks, and then I'll work my way towards the center. So I'm going to have one over here on the left hand side, just a little bit towards you're only going to see a portion of it. So I'm going to start somewhere in through here. And my tree trunks are not going to be super duper straight. These are, to me, are representational of those really tall ones that you see like on the side of the road that have been growing for probably, I don't know, 50 years or so, and they're just super tall and they've got a lot of height and they're very slender. So those are the ones I'm going for. I'm going to go for another big one over here on my right hand side. I'm going to start in through maybe 2 inches or so in through here, and I'm going for my biggest ones first, so that way I can visually have kind of a roadmap as to where I want the rest of them or the size of the rest of them. And this one's just going to kind of trail off, and we're just going to see a little piece of it down the edge of my canvas. So again, this will give you that sense of perspective as you're looking at the canvas, and you're going to feel as though this car is just kind of emerging right into you, I guess, right out of the canvas and into you. But you can see I'm not doing my trunks very straight. I'm letting them have a little bit of body to them and movement to them, so they have, some diversity in them. And then I think I'm going to have my next one is going to start way down here on the bottom left hand corner, and it's going to be a little bit wider at the bottom. Maybe it curves in towards this car a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of have this almost shooting, maybe kind of straight up or so. And again, I just kind of keep picking up the black and the brown. I started at the top on this one, so we're going to meet somewhere in the middle on this one. There we go. I'm just using the black and the brown just to get my base coat on here. Some are going to be lighter than others, some are going to be darker than others. It totally works when you have that light area and dark area. And then I think I'm going to have my next one in on the right, I'm going to have coming towards the behind the car in through here. So you're going to notice that mine are going to get a little bit more narrow as I'm going farther and farther away. I think I'm going to have this one kind of ending up here, and again just kind of giving myself that little bit of width at the bottom and making it a little bit skinnier at the top. And again, they don't have to be super straight. That one kind of ended up a little straight, but it didn't need to. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and do this one is going to be on this part of the car as well. And then maybe the top of it's going to come in through here. And again, just a little bit wider as it comes down towards that base. Maybe those two are going to be my almost straight trees. And then I'm going to have a couple going off into the distance. So I'm going to have this one kind of maybe starting in through here, and then I think this is going to end up maybe a little bit to the right of the center of the car. This is going to be behind the car, so maybe somewhere in through here is where this one's going to land. And you can see it's much more narrow than this one over here. Well, not much, but enough for it to look like it's a little bit further off in the distance, something like that. And then I think I'm gonna have one more maybe in through here. So this is getting progressively shorter, and I think this will end up behind my my surfboard a little bit in through here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of highlight to them. So maybe not necessarily just a highlight, but something that's going to give them a little bit more texture on the trunks. I'm not terribly concerned about the tops of the trees, but I want to give down below a little bit of texture. So without washing my brush, I currently have black and brown on my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white paint with the black and the brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up the side with just kind of like a little bit of a streak, something like that. And then I'm just going to start to pull it in an arcing type of brush stroke. This is going to give you the illusion of those the circular marks around the palm tree. And if you want yours more dramatic than mine, you can certainly use more white in your equation. If you want yours more subtle than mine, then obviously you can use less white than mine. But I'm giving mine a good highlight to make it look like, you know, it's a nice summer day and we're giving the trees as much sunshine as they need so they can grow nice and tall. But I'm giving it a very kind of chaotic type of stroke as I'm putting that spiral type effect. And there is a ton of different types of palm trees, so yours do not have to necessarily have this spiral type of look to them or these rings of sorts on their bark. Yours can certainly be of a smoother variety. On the right trees, I did it on the left side, and on the left trees, I'm going to do it on the right side, just to indicate maybe the sun is in the center or the light is in the center. So I just kind of put that stripe down the left side, and then I'm just kind of pulling it up in this. This is a little tiny tree, so this one's a little bit more difficult to do, but just giving it a little hint of something fancy in through there. And same thing over here. I've got the white on my brush with whatever remnants of the brown and the black. And of course, I want it to look pretty natural, so I'm not doing a systematic brush stroke. I'm just kind of pulling it in kind of a curved type of line towards the dark side of the tree. And then of course I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm doing a pretty, you know, systematic type of approach to these. You could certainly make yours a little bit more on the natural side. This is again just a fun representational way to do them, and again we're not looking to make it look like a photograph, so I'm just enjoying the process. If I wanted a little bit more brightness, I could certainly add a little bit more white and keep just kind of pulling those little stripes in that semi-circular type of brushstroke or curved type of brushstroke. And then I've got this last one to go over here. And again, if you're going towards the darker trees, maybe your highlight is more white and brown. If you're in the lighter trees, maybe your highlight is more of just the white color. So you can certainly adjust that based on how dark your tree is. And then we're going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your palm tree trunks all nice and executed, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our surfboard. I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using a white and maybe some blue and maybe some green. You can really decorate this whatever way you want. You can have stripes, you can have polka dots, you can have zigzags, you can have whatever you want. So I'm going to start with just some white paint. I'm going to give myself kind of like a center stripe going a little bit in the curved direction just to take on the curve of the surfboard. Maybe I'll use a little bit of my blue as well. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a highlight of sorts over on this right hand side. And again, when you get to doing this, you can certainly modify yours and make whatever kind of decorations you want. I think I'm going to have maybe some stripes going up the sides like this, and of course make yours whatever way that you want it to. And then maybe I'll have similar ones coming up this left hand side. Oh, maybe I want one going as if it's coming out of the car. Yeah, there we go. And the two sides don't have to match. You could certainly do what, maybe I want to do some polka dots in through here. So you can certainly make yours look whatever way you would like to. And then when you're all done decorating your surfboard, so I used blue and white, but you could certainly utilize any colors that you want. Maybe you want some purple in there or whatever colors you want. And then we are going to be moving back to our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your surfboard decorated whatever way you want to, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the tops to our palm trees. So we're painting our palm fronds. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are black, brown, green, orange, and white. So how I'm going to start this is I want there to be kind of like a dark base at the underneath them, and then I'm going to do some highlighted colors on the top. So I'm going to start with black, brown, and green on my brush at the same time. So I have 3 colors on my brush at the same time, and I'm going to lay in the fronds of sorts. So for me, I like to just kind of start in the center and just give myself some varying lengths for these for the fronds, and I like them to be pretty chaotic and have different directions to them. Then what I do is I'm going to take and I'm going to pull down the little fluffier pieces of it, and gravity tends to take over. So I just use my brush and I am pulling them in kind of a downward motion from the actual stem. But if you have one that's kind of sticking up, you can certainly go in an upward motion. But the idea is just to have those little fluffier parts be coming out of the stem. And of course you can have some in the front as well. I'm going to move on to the next one, and this is going to be my smallest one. As I move to the other ones, they're going to the fronds are going to be larger. So for this one, I've got, maybe one coming in through here, and then maybe one over here. And of course, you can have yours totally different than mine. Yours can be much bigger or smaller, or however you foresee your palm fronds to be. That's totally fine. And I like mine to be a kind of off, not so systematic. So I'll have longer ones on one side and shorter ones, or more on one side and less on another. So I keep reloading my brush with the green, brown, and black. And for this one in through here, maybe this top is starting in through here, and it's going to be just kind of draping over these other ones. I'm going to continue to pick up those three colors as, oh, you know what, I forgot to do the little, I was talking so much, I forgot to do the little pieces coming off of the stems on this one. So making sure I get those little pieces coming off of here. And I just tend to do them all in a pretty systematic way, just making sure that I've got everywhere covered and it's got enough volume to it. And then once I've got that done, of course, then I go ahead and move on to the next one. Green, brown, and black are the colors that I'm using. I did the stems, and now I'm doing the base coat for the little pieces that are coming off. And this tree in through here, I'm not even going to see anything to it. It's way up here, so I don't even have to worry about that one. And then over on this side, I think I'm just going to see the head or some of the branches, I guess, of one of them. So I'm going to bring this one maybe way far down in through here, and then maybe I've got another one coming off in this direction. Maybe I've got one coming off the top as well. And then of course I'm going to go ahead and just pull those leaves off that stem for that particular branch. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on this one. I think I feel like I need one up in this corner too. There we go. And then once I've got the base on there, I'm not going to wash my brush. My colors I'm going to be using to add that little highlight to it is green, orange, and white. And I'm going to use them all on my brush at the same time. So that way I'm going to have diversity and variety in my little highlights. So I'm just going to go right back to the first one that I did, and I'm going to have a couple of ones in the front, and I'm really just kind of working off of the ones that I had already established and pulling down or adding to them a little bit of highlight onto that existing branch. So this way it adds that sense of highlight, or a little bit of realism and dimension to it without having to do too much to it. We've got the shadows from the darker colors, and then we've got those little bits of highlights from the lighter colors. And if you want one coming out the middle, just kind of put a nice little light one coming out the middle, and that will help to sell the story of that center. And then again, green, yellow, or green, orange, and white are my colors. And I'm not doing as much on this little highlighted layer that I did on the first layer, because I don't want to, or I did on the first layer, I just don't want to overpaint it. So I'm really just using the tip of my brush to get these bits of highlights on here. And if you ever feel that your brush is a little bit too overloaded and you seem to just be mushing your colors together, that might mean that you have too much paint within the bristles. So just give it a good squeeze on your in your paper towel, or you can wash it and dry it. But sometimes when we're working on these layer after layer type of effects, sometimes we end up getting too much paint within the bristles of our brush, and that makes it a little bit more difficult to continue to add to these layers. It just tends to maybe muddle it a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to this one. And again, I'm not doing a whole heck of a lot, just kind of adding little bits of highlights to here. And if you feel like you did too much, you can always bring some of that green or the brown back. But really, I'm just looking to give myself a little bit of highlights and sunshine added to these palm fronds, because you got to have sunshine if you're going to the beach. So we've got to put some in our trees. And again, this orange and the white definitely help to sell the story of some sunshine on those palm fronds. And then I just have this one last one over here. This one is a big, huge one. And I'm just kind of adding a whole bunch of brightness to it to make sure that it has its sunshine on it, and I'm not overdoing it. I'm thinking highlights. I'm not thinking I need to paint the whole thing over again. I'm just adding some dimension to it and getting these little leaves on the tree to show their pretty faces. And then we are going to be using our let's use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry your little brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing the top of the car. I'm going to be using my small brush with black and white paint, maybe a little brown too, but definitely black and white. So this is going to include our windshield, our steering wheel, our rear view mirror, and whatever you want to have dangling from your rear view mirror. I'm going to have a set of dice, but you can have whatever you want. So I'm going to start with just doing black for each one of those pieces. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm putting black paint on my brush, and during this process, if you find that your black paint is a little bit too thick or you're not getting smooth enough lines, what you can do is just take your brush and drop a drop of water into your paint so you can get it almost like an ink consistency. So you want it kind of nice and thin so that way you can have continuous lines. And then what I do with my brush is I take it and I spin it on the side of my palette. So that's going to make my brush nice and pointy. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to first just outline my windshield. So my windshield is going to go from this corner to this corner, and I am just going to be using black paint. I am kind of bracing myself on my canvas with my pinky, so that helps me to kind of stabilize myself as we talked about earlier. And you can either go from the left to the right or the right to the left. This is definitely a step that will help you to smooth out any of your lines if you need to. But again, I don't go for anything perfect in here, just something that's going to make my painterly eye nice and happy. So something like that. And you can certainly continue to tweak it all you want. If you wanted this to come up a little bit higher, you could just make it a little bit thicker in the middle if you wanted to give it more of a rounded type of appearance. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to be going directly up from the center, maybe about 1.5 inches. That's going to be the top of my windshield. I don't want it up too high, so this way this will give me a good stopping point. I really want it to look like it's far, you know, like the windshield farther back than the front of the car. And then what I'm going to do, I've got to give myself 2 corners to the windshield, so I have a starting and a stopping point for this particular line. So if you come in from these 2 corners, maybe about 1/8 or 1/2 inch or something, and then go straight up maybe about 1.5 inches, that will give you the corners to your windshield. And then you can take those corners and you can connect them to down here. So something like this, I'm going to connect it right to here, and then I'm going to connect this one right to here. So I want it a little bit at a diagonal, which is why I came in just a little bit. And then I'm going to connect those top 2 corners with a similar kind of arc that I have down here. So wherever you need to start to make your brain go right, but I always like to keep my eye on the prize, which is whatever that next marker is, and that helps me to just kind of give a continual line or a continual arc. So again, if you go astray a little bit, that's totally fine. I suppose you could have used a pencil to get this on here, but I like to kind of just go for it every now and again. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my steering wheel. So I'm going to have that, if this is the center of my car, I'm a little over to the right a bit, so maybe somewhere in through here, and then I'm going to just kind of give myself a half of a circle, something like this. And again, your steering wheel might end up bigger or smaller than mine. I'm going to do the little spokes in the middle of it. I'm sure that's not the correct terminology for them, but I'm just going to bring one down the center, one over to the left, to the right, and now one over to the left like this. This reminds me of those hot rod steering wheels that have that like thick steering wheel to it. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my rear view mirror. So we're looking at it, from the opposite side. So all I'm going to do is about in the center of my windshield, maybe about 1/2 inch away from the top of my windshield. I'm just going to give myself a little a little rectangle of sorts, something like this. And of course, if yours is rounded or squared on the edges, that's all right, whatever works. I'm going to do a little diagonal line at the top to show the connector piece so it's connected to the windshield. Then I'm going to go ahead and make myself a couple little cubes down by, down in this vicinity. So I'm gonna have mine hanging pretty darn low. So maybe something like this will be for my first one. And again, you can have anything you want hanging from your windshield. I'm just gonna put some of those fun dice that I've seen plenty of times. I think I want mine a little bit bigger. Let's make some big cubes. Yeah, that works. Something like that. And then I'm gonna have one that's gonna maybe just kind of touch it a little bit and an equal kind of size, something like this. And I'm just coloring them in black. And then I need them to have a string hanging from my my rear view mirror. So I'm gonna have one like this, and then one, it would make sense if they would be hanging from the center. One like this, and I just got a big black spot right here from my wet hand. So I'm gonna take care of that before it dries. So I'm just taking a brush with a little bit of water, getting that off there before it dries, because I know how difficult that will be to get off once it's dry. So I'm just erasing it while it's still wet. That will help me later on. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little highlight around all of my pieces that I just put on. So on the exterior windshield part, I just picked up a little bit of white paint, and really all I'm going to do is these little streaks down the side of it. And if you go astray like I did, you can just kind of use your magic eraser again. I was at a bad angle on that one, so we're going to use my magic eraser. And I don't want to cover up all of my black paint, so you can use white with a little bit of black paint on your brush at the same time. And when you do this, just think streaks, like it's a little bit of a highlight. It does not have to be the whole thing. You want to have some of that black showing through, so it shows some dimensional kind of element to it. And it is a nice sunshiny day, so if some of your pieces are brighter than the other, that works out well too, because that's just going to show that maybe one part is shinier than the other. So if you take some extra white and just kind of put it in an area, you know, in one part, that's going to make that part look even shinier than the rest. So I'm just going to kind of make sure that looks good there. So then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to my steering wheel. So a little bit of black and white. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a highlight up at the top to make sure that it looks a little dimensional. If I want, I could even put a little highlight in between the little pieces in through here just to get those to pop out a little bit. I can put a little bit of a highlight on this front part of the car in through here. And this is where, you know, you can use your car knowledge. If you want to put windshield wipers on here, you can do that. If you want to put, you know, any other kind of decorative vents, or, you know, anything that you feel would elevate the look of your hot rod or make it into the way that you foresee it being, you can certainly make it that way. It's, you know, again, I'm doing an imaginary car, but you could certainly make yours into a Mustang or a Corvette or whatever kind of hot rod that you want. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put my highlight on my string. I don't know, I'm debating whether or not I want to highlight on my rearview mirror. I think I'm just going to go for it on the string portion, so that way the string will pop out from in front of the rearview mirror, but I suppose you could put one either way. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little highlight on my cubes. So top and the right on these ones, top and right. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some dots in my dice, my cube dice. So I'm just going to do 5, but you could certainly do as many as you want. And I'm just doing little polka dots. You could, again, make as many as you want to. I think I need to put a little line here just to separate the two. There we go. And then we are going to be using, let's see, our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your windshield all nice and done, you can wash and dry your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting the highlights and shadows on the main body of the car and the tires. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm using are red, white, probably some of the orange, brown, and maybe a little black as well. Yeah, definitely some black. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to think of where the light is hitting the car and the shape of the car. So the car is rounded here and on here, and the light, I'm going to say, is kind of over to the right. I'm going to have a big highlight on this part that bumps out the most, as well as the parts that bump out the most up here, maybe a little bit over here on the right hand side of the car, and maybe some in the front as well. And then I need some shadows. So shadows I would have wherever the car dips in. So it would dip in through here. It's going to have a little shadow where the hood meets the front of the car, so wherever you have this line in through here, and maybe a little bit of shadow down in this front of the car as it starts tipping downwards. The wheels are just going to have a little bit of highlight in that front part of them as they're making their appearance out from the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my shadows first and just work my way to the light. So I'm going to start with a little bit of brown and black on my brush. I'm going to have a shadow in between here. So wherever I have that pencil mark, I'm just going to give myself a kind of a light sketcherly line in through there. I just dip my brush a little bit in the water so I can kind of back this center line up just a little bit, and that way it gives it a nice kind of realistic look as that hood is casting a shadow upon that little front edge of the car. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put just brown and red paint on my brush. I'm going to give myself some shadows in through here and here. So this one is being cast from that, and this one's being cast from the actual front of the car itself. And it doesn't have to be a drastic shadow. This is just something that is going to tell the viewer that, yep, the light is over there, and yes, the car has some shape to it. So this is going to allow me to, you know, give that viewer that information of the of where the light is coming from. So I've got a little bit of shadow in through there. I'm going to put some shadow down in through here. So this is going to be red and brown paint. It's just going to give me a little bit of shadow down on the front part of this car as it's meeting what's going to be the fender. And if you go into your fender like I just did, don't worry about it. I'm going to put a little bit of a shadow underneath this where this light is, this headlight is, so that's going to give that a little bit of shape. You could put a little bit of shadow in through here, or maybe a little bit of shadow underneath here where this light, I'm imagining, kind of pops out of the car a little bit. But again, I'm making this car up as I go, so I'm just imagining these lights to kind of pop out. So this is that's where I'm foreseeing the shadow to be if the light is over kind of in the top right. And then I'm going to just use red to finish this area in through here without washing my brush. I'm just kind of making sure that I have another coat of red on there. I just made that car grow a little bit in through there, and I'll start putting my highlights on in a second. I just want to make sure that I've got enough of the regular red where I want that kind of almost solid color to be, and I've brought it all the way to my grill. So when I do my highlights, they're going to be, again, over here, up in through here, maybe a little bit on this front nose of the car. I'm going to be using white, but I also want it to blend into the car. So I'll need to use red. But red and white is going to make kind of a pinkish color, and if that is not the way that you want to go, you can utilize some of your orange to steer it less pink. It'll go more into an orangey, vibrant kind of color. So I'm going to start with red and my orange on my brush, just to kind of get the car wet, in essence, where I want that the highlight to kind of lead to. And then I'm going to pick up some white paint without washing my brush, and I'm going to be doing it or painting it in a directional kind of brush stroke. So if my car is curved, I'm going to curve my brush or my brush stroke. So that's going to, again, lead the viewer to understand that the object that is being illuminated is in fact curved. And I'm going to bring this highlight all the way into here because I feel that that's what would happen on my imaginary car, and then I'm going to just pull that highlight over to the left side of the car. But I do want it to kind of gradually kind of fade into the darker side of the car. So you might find that this takes a minute for you to get the blend that you want. I just picked up some of the orange and red to make sure that it kind of blends into this left-hand side here, but I don't want to get rid of all of my red paint, so I just want to make sure that I do as much of a blend as I want. I can put even brighter white at that tip, so for me, I feel that this would be the brightest in through here, so I'm just adding a bit more of the white. And you can, of course, tweak that as much as you want. I'm going to just kind of add a little bit of the white with a touch of red in through here just to get a smudge of a highlight going on above that area. And then I'm going to go ahead and work my way over on here, so I know that I've got a bright highlight coming on this right hand side, because to me that's where the light is. And then I'll get it to be kind of the brightest at the top, and then it's going to fade down into this left side. So I wiped my brush off on my paper towel, picked up some of the red and orange, and I'm going to get this to just kind of slowly make its way into this little dark area that I feel would be created by the light, or by the lack of light in this little corner. And of course you can keep tweaking yours as much as you want. I might come back and elevate that highlight a little bit, but I'm going to let it dry for a second. I'm going to move on to this left hand side over here. So again, just white paint is where I'm starting. I'm going to give it a directional kind of brush stroke, because I feel that's the direction of the curve. And then I know that this right side would be a little bit lighter than the left side because of where I've designated my light to be. So once it's on there, I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel, picked up a little bit of the orange and red to get this to blend in a little bit, and then make sure that I've got it blended on the left side as well. But again, that left side to me would go a little bit darker. So just making sure that I have accomplished that look. I'm just adding a bit more white up in through here. And sometimes you might have to keep coming back and just adding little bits of the white just to get it as bright as you want it to be. Again, add a little bit of highlight down in through here. So I'm just loading my brush with white, red, and orange to get a little bit of a highlight in through here. And again, I'm not doing much, just kind of giving the illusion that maybe there's a piece of the car sticking out in through here. And of course, if you go into your grill, as I just did, you can just wipe it away. But you can certainly paint over any little modifications that you feel that you might need to do. Maybe I'm going to pick up some more red just to get this bottom line a little bit smoother. There we go. That's going to make me happy. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a highlight on this right corner of the car. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white on my brush, because I feel that this would be pretty darn light over here, and I'm just, again, pulling it in the direction that I feel that the car curves. So I'm just pulling this in this direction. Again, we're going to be doing a light, the lights are going to be on our headlights, so this area will probably be disguised a little bit when we get to that point anyways. So if you don't get yours exactly as you want, it's all right. And then I'm just going to gradually get it to come into here. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of my red and my orange just to make sure that I've got this transitioning into the front of the car as much as I want it to. And I'll probably add just a touch more highlight over on that right hand corner. So maybe just a little bit more white on my brush. And I think I'm going to go up and add that little bit more highlight on top of this. Ooh, maybe it's called a wheel well. No, that's not what it is. I don't know what this part is here. I know it's not a fender. It's not a wheel well. We'll call it, I don't know, part of the hood. Even though it's not part of the hood. So I'm just kind of elevating this little highlight a little bit more, making sure it's got the curve that I want it to, make sure the viewer understands that this is a curved piece of the car. And we are going to be using, oh, I need to do my highlights on my wheels. So I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm going to pick up some white and a touch of brown on my brush. And I'm going to make these tires, again, not photorealistic. I'm just going to add a little bit of brightness in the front part. But to me, on this one, we're maybe seeing a little bit of the inside of the wheel. So I'm going to just kind of add this little line in through here to tell the viewer that we, in fact, are seeing part of the inside of it. And then I'm bringing this in a little bit of a curved line as it's coming down towards the bottom of that wheel. And then I'm going to just kind of get this to fade up or blend into the tire. So I just picked up a little bit of black paint on my brush just to get this to blend in a little bit so it's not just a harsh line going across there. We'll work on the fender in a little bit, but this is just going to get us the highlight on the front of the wheel as it is making its way under that fender. And I just added a little bit more white so you can see a little bit more of the highlight in through here. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other tire. So white and brown is where I start with my highlight on it. And I don't feel like I would see part of the side of this particular tire, but I still want to give you the illusion of the bottom kind of tucking under. So I'll do it kind of straight, and then as I come towards the bottom of it, I'm just going to flick my brush a little bit to give you the illusion that it is kind of going underneath. And then I will do get it to blend in with the black. So I'm picking up a little bit of black right now to get that top portion to blend in. And then I'll pick up a little bit more white paint to just elevate a portion of that highlight, something like this. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your highlights, we're going to use our large brush, large brush for the next step. Once you've got your main highlights and shadows on the main area of your car, you can put your medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're putting the shadow underneath our car. So I'm going to use my large brush. I'm going to be using brown and black, and if I need to, I'll use a little water too. So the water will help me to spread the paint around as it's drying. So I'm using a very firm brush, which is going to allow me to do what I refer to as like a scrubbing type of technique. I'm going to have my shadow a little bit darker where it meets the car, which means that it's further underneath the car, and then I'm just going to have a little shadow around my tires as well. So I'm going to start with a tiny bit of brown and a tiny bit of black. Just you want to make sure that you don't have any white in your mixture because that'll make a big gray area. And then I'm just going to take my brush and kind of wipe it off on the side of my palette. It's better to start with a little bit of paint than to pick up a whole bunch of paint. You can always add more, but it's tough to take it off once it's in there. And then I want it to be see-through, so I don't want it to be as black as my fender. So as I go through this process, I'm going to be rubbing my paint into my canvas. And if I paint into my car, as I'm doing right now, I'm okay with that. I can overlap my car a little bit. I'm more concerned about getting that shadow where I want it to go. And I know the front of my car is rounded, so if I make my shadow go a little bit on the rounded side as it's coming out from underneath the car, that would totally make sense. And once I've got the underneath part of the car, you can bring it farther than the tires if you want to, or you can bring it just as far, whatever you'd like. It's totally up to you. I'm going to do a little bit for my tires as well. So I feel like my brush is almost too dry at this point, so I'm going to reload with those two colors, maybe more brown than black because it's starting to emerge from underneath, out from underneath the car. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of shadow underneath the tire, something like this. And I'm just going to pull it out just a little bit. And I'm using more brown, so again, I'm wiping my brush off because I have too much paint. I used a little bit more brown because I know the brown's going to be nice and see-through and it's going to show the color underneath, and it's not going to fight with the black that's on my tire already. So that's why I'm choosing to use a little bit more brown, and I'm having my shadow kind of dissipate a little bit as opposed to being a solid kind of shadow because I feel like when you're outdoors in the sunshine, the shadows just kind of fade off into the distance. And then I'm going to go ahead and do one on the other side. And I know that I designated my highlight or my light source to be over on the right, but I'm thinking it's really high up in the air too. So it would make sense to put a little bit on this left-hand side of this tire, but I'm not going to put a whole lot. I'm just going to kick it out just a little bit on the left-hand side of the tire to give you that illusion of the light source being over to the right, but I'm going to still put a lot underneath the car as well. So I'm going to bring it to the right and then just bring it up just a little bit to give you that illusion of it being underneath the car as well. And then you can just kind of fiddle with it as much as you need to until you feel that you've got it in the correct intensity. If you needed to dissipate it a little bit, you could add a touch of water to your brush, and that would help you to get it a little bit softer around the edges. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your shadow as shadowy as you want it underneath your car, you can put your large brush away in your wherever you'd like to. Take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our grill. So I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using black and white paint. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a gray color. So I'm going to use a little bit of white and a little bit of black and just mix them together till I get like a medium to dark kind of gray. I would say somewhere in this vicinity would work out just fine. And what I'm going to do is I am going to make myself an imaginary grill. I'm going to decorate my grill in the way that I would like to. So I'm going to have a fancy like couple of circles within it. So I'm going to go somewhere down in the center of my grill like this. I'm going to give myself a circle. This is going to be a beautiful like emblem kind of shiny thing that I'm going to have. And then I'm going to do two smaller ones, a little bit smaller to the left and the right, maybe up a little bit. So I think I'm going to have maybe one in through here. And again, I'm just decorating this whatever way I want to. You can certainly decorate yours whatever way that you would like to. And then I'm going to go ahead and put another one in through here. So this is a little bit higher, just trying to space them in a good way here. Maybe I'll have these a little bit lower. I think I'm going to make them just a little bit bigger and a little bit lower. Yeah, I just want to make sure that they take up as much space as I want them to. And of course they don't have to be perfect. You could have triangles, you could have rectangles, you could have just the grill part that we'll be putting the lines on in a minute. So you can, once you see what kind of details I put on mine, you can certainly do yours, you know, whatever way that you would like. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is with this gray paint, I'm going to do a whole bunch of like a grid throughout it. So I'm going to do one line down the center like this. And then what I like to do if I'm going to do something equally spaced apart is I'm going to kind of continually cut each section in half. And I want these to look like it's got a little bit of shape. So this is going to be straight, and then all the ones from the right are going to have a little curve to the right, and all the ones to the left will have a little curve to the left. So I'm going to go about halfway between here and here, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a curved line, knowing that that one hit the other side of that. I could probably do the same thing on this side, even though it might not be exactly halfway, but it'll give a good illusion. And then I just kind of keep cutting each section in half, in half. And again, you don't have to do the same pattern as I'm doing, and I'm doing this little bit of a curve to give it shape. And then as I get over in through here, again, just kind of cutting it in half. And again, you could do as many as you want, as many lines as you want. You could do twice as many as mine, or half as many, or whatever you'd like to do is totally fine. I'm just kind of getting mine going here. Oops, that's not even, so we'll just kind of put that one on that side. There we go. Give the illusion of it being even. And then we've got one here and here, and then I've got two more in through here and here. And then what I'll do is I'll do some horizontal ones too. So I'm going to have maybe just one down at the bottom, and I'm just going to go across all of these. And if I'm a little bit away from this one and there, I'll do the same thing on the other side, so I can have a little bit of symmetry. But again, this is the way I'm designing my car. You can design yours in your own fancy way. And then I'm going to have maybe one more going up on the top, something like this. And of course, I'm just kind of making mine symmetrical, or attempting to make it a little symmetrical, but you could certainly make yours whatever way you want. And then I'm going to do a white one. I just picked up some white paint. I'm doing a big white one kind of across the middle. So I'm going to have mine going, I would say maybe somewhere in here and to the bottom of this one. And of course you can on the fly, you know, modify your shapes a little bit if you wanted to. That's, you know, you get to decorate it whatever way that you want to. And now that I have the white paint on my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put little highlights on my grill marks. So I've got white. I think I'm going to put a little bit of gray on there too. And all I'm doing is I'm doing just a little kind of dash on them, which is giving them the illusion of being shiny. And I'm going in between the grid marks. So this is just giving it a really quick kind of on the fly way to make it look shiny. And you don't even have to do, I think I might add another one going across the front, but you don't have to do a continual line. I'm just kind of doing these dashes, and that's going to allow the viewer to think that there's a little bit of a spot that's sticking out and having, getting a little bit of sunshine on it. So you can just go through them and add just a hint of a highlight, and that helps to give you that illusion of it, again, just kind of popping out and having a little bit of a shine to it without having to do anything too fancy to it. You're just giving it, you know, giving the viewer the information that it might be of a shiny sort. I think I want a little bit more white on this little line in through here. And then I'm going to decorate that center emblem and maybe add some lightness to these. So I'm thinking these might be just maybe parking lights or interior kind of shiny things. So I'm just adding some white onto my brush, and I'm going to do an exterior kind of messy circle around these ones, and I'm going to get it to blend in a little bit with the center. So this is just kind of giving me almost like a shiny circular object that could be made to look like a light, or it could be just some kind of shiny circular emblem. And then on the interior here, I'm going to add a little bit of black in here just so I can have, I want to do kind of a decorative element. So I'm going to just put a little circular area of black in through here. And then I'm going to, you could put initials, you could put, you know, whatever, if you're doing a real car that you know the emblem of, you could totally put that on there. I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to pick up some white and my gray, and I'm just going to do some little decorative elements on this. So I'm going to maybe do a little bit of a highlight of sorts around this exterior to give it a bit of shine around the exterior. And of course, you might want yours a little bit more finessed and perfect than mine is, but again, I'm just kind of having fun here. So white and my gray, and then I'm just going to kind of do maybe just like these little swishy marks down the sides, and then maybe a little dot in the center. And again, I'm just kind of doing whatever design I want. You can make your design as fancy as you want or as simple as you want. And then we're going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your grill all nice and finished, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish our fender and all the decorative details. So I'm gonna be using my small brush. I'm gonna be using black and white and red and orange and blue and maybe some brown. So the fender is gonna be shiny. So it's gonna be reflecting the colors that are around it. So I'm gonna start by putting my decorative elements base coat on. So I have a license plate, and then I have, I don't know what they're called. They're gonna be a couple of pieces over in through this vicinity that are gonna stick out from my bumper a little bit. So I'm gonna have my license plate in through here. It's gonna stick up above the fender a little bit, and I'm just doing a rectangle type of shape. You could certainly do yours in whatever kind of shape that you'd like, but I'm gonna do mine in a rectangle, and I'm just gonna paint it in black. I will be painting my words or my message or my name or whatever I choose to paint on my license plate. I'll be doing that after the black dries. So I'm just going to kind of get this black on here, and while it's drying, we'll go and do the other elements or the other decorations on the fender. So I've got that on there. And then what I'm going to do with this black paint, I'm going to put the first coat of these other pieces on. So I'm going to have these curved pieces somewhere in this vicinity. I'm just going to kind of curve it into the bottom part of the fender down here. I've got mine maybe about ½ inch to ¼ inch wide, something like this. I'm sure this has something to, these are like more protective pieces on the bumper or the fender. So that's going to be my story. I don't need to know exactly what it is, but if you want to make it a similar distance away from your license plate, which my license plate looks a little off center, but that's all right. You can kind of use a measuring tool somewhere about there. No, that's not going to look right. I'm going to put it somewhere right below here. That'll make my eye happy. So I'm going to just do a little horizontal line like that, and then just give it a curved line that is similar to the other one, and then just paint it in black. And then once I have these two elements painted on, what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to add the highlight or the shiny part to the fender / bumper area in through here. So the bottom part down here, I've got my dirty brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of white. I have black on it right now, so black and white. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a highlight at the bottom of it, so it ends up showing you that this is the edge of it. Maybe it's made of a similar material as the tires. Maybe it's black and shiny. You can certainly decide its, full-on color as much as you want, but I'm just giving it a little streak of a highlight. I'm skipping where those black pieces are going because that's going to be another highlight that we're going to do, but I'm bringing this all the way to the edge, something like that. And I am going to pick up a little bit of black right now just so this line isn't so stark next to the black, and I'm just kind of rubbing it in a little bit so it gets a little bit more blended in through there. And if you went over it like I did, you can just paint a correction. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more white. I think I want this to pop out a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. And that's all, what I will typically do if I'm doing a piece and I feel like I want it to be, more visible. I need to add more contrast to it. So in this case, it was not visible enough to me, so I just added a bit more white to it, and next to that black, it's going to make it pop out even more. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some colors to this white piece in through here. So to me, it's going to be reflecting everything that's around it. So I can add white, or it already is white. I can add some of my orange, I can add purple, I can add blue, I can add, as many different colors as I want. So I'm going to start with a little bit of maybe orange and white, and I'm just going to kind of get some of that color in through here. And you can, if you bump into this piece, don't worry about it, because we're gonna add some information to that in a moment as well. I just added some purple onto my brush, just kind of getting some little hues of the whatever colors are around it. Maybe a touch of blue, because maybe it's just got a little bit of shininess to it. And sometime when you're looking, I'm doing that to this bottom part too, because I like the blue in it. Sometimes when you add that bit of blue, that will make it more like a metallic type of look. So I just added blue, and now I'm adding a touch of white to my brush. And that way I'm kind of getting it to blend in, maybe bring a little bit of that blue in through here. Maybe I need something around here so you can see the edge of this one in front of that background. So a little bit of blue worked there. And now I'm gonna just add some more white just to make sure that I've got this in the zone I want it in. You could even add some gray to it or some brown. You can really get this to be as exciting or as, you know, simplified as you want. And I think I want a little bit more of my white over in through here. So just kind of going over some of those colors just to get them to fade into that shiny piece a little bit. And then of course you can certainly continue to do little tweaks on that if you wanted to. I'm just going to dull this blue down just a little bit so it's not too invasive. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my word in my license plate. So I'm going to do sun bum, but because, you know, I feel like sometimes I just really want to be a bum in the sun. So that's what I'm going to choose to do. You could put whatever, you know, wording that you would like on yours. It's totally up to you. So I'm just washing and drying my brush. I'm going to be using white paint to start, but I might end up adding some additional colors as well. So I've got 6 letters. So I know that I want them to kind of be symmetrical, so I'm going to put a little dot in the center. That'll separate my 2 words. And then I'm going to just use kind of block letters. And if some of my paint underneath is still a little wet, that's okay. I'm just going to paint it into it, and I can always come back later and modify this as whatever way that I want to, if I need to do any little tweaks to it. So I'm just trying to keep my hand out of your way and keep it steady at the same time. So, and I have a little hair at the end of my brush that is being my nemesis right now. So it's adding some extra texture to my letters. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my next word. So you can do whatever style letters you want. This is obviously a vanity plate where you can have fun with it. I'm just doing little block letters, but you could certainly do whatever kind of letters that you want. And once I've got my letters on there, I'm going to just do a little kind of decorative outline to it. So I'm just adding a little bit of white, and if my black along the edge is wet, that will just enhance my effect that I'm giving it around the edge. So I have black and white on my brush right now, which is just helping me clean up that edge over there. And you could add, you know, some lights around your license plate. You could add sparkles and dots and whatever else you'd like to do. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some highlights onto here. So I just have the white and maybe a little black on my brush. Just going to give this a little highlight like this and like this. And I'm going to pull a little bit of blue into these as well. That's going to make them look a little shiny. And I'm bringing it down past this fender or this other area. So that's going to give it a little bit more dimension and make you feel like it goes down a little bit further. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your fender / bumper as fancy as you'd like, you can wash and dry. Ooh, the medium brush, I think I said. I want to use the medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're adding the glow on our headlights. and we're also going to add a little bit of a highlight on our windshield. So you might like your windshield as it is, but if you do want to add a tiny bit of a shine to it, that will give it a little bit more dimension and it'll make it look a little bit more realistic. So I'm using my medium brush. I'm going to be using white paint most of the time, but when I get to my headlights, I might use a little bit of orange to give the light a little bit more glow. So for the windshield, I'm going to use a tiny bit of white paint, very, very little bit of white paint, and I'm going to be, in essence, kind of doing what we did for the shadow down below where I'm rubbing the paint into the canvas. I'm going to put a pretty good highlight at the top of the windshield, and then I'll put a little bit of a shine, so to speak, throughout a portion of it. So not the whole thing. So I'm just taking white paint and I'm going up towards the edge where the windshield meets the top part of the car. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that white, and you can just kind of rub it in and just pull it out of a certain area on the windshield. You don't want to necessarily accidentally hide too much of the detail that you put underneath, but you could certainly just add a bit of lightness to it so it gives the viewer the information that there is in fact something in front of your surfboard or in front of the tree. So even if I just add a little bit of white and just kind of pull it down and just get it to dissipate throughout that windshield a little bit, that's just, again, going to sell the story of it being of a shiny surface. And then when I go to do my headlights, and again, you can see I didn't do much to it, just something to give that visual effect. So when I go to do the lights, I'm going to pick up white with just a teeny tiny bit of orange to give myself a little interior kind of glow to those lights. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up just white paint and I'm going to do the exterior, and I'm going to come outside of my footprint just a little bit, but I don't want a lot of paint on my brush. So I'm going to wipe it off on my paper towel, and I'm going to give it this little bit of a glow on the outside. And what this is going to do is it's just going to allow the viewer to understand that the lights are on and nobody's home. No, just kidding. That the lights are on and somebody must be home. They must be getting ready to drive this car. And this will help to kind of bring fullness to the lights and around the lights, so that way it gives you more of a visual effect. So I'm just kind of pulling this white paint out here. You can even pull it out into the surrounding landscape of sorts. And if you go too much, you just add a tiny bit of water to your brush and you can kind of wipe some of it away. But I like that kind of glow around it. And then when you get your lights done and you have all of your tweaks done and you can make any final adjustments that you want, we still have one tiny little step left to go, and it's going to be done with the small brush. So once you've got all of this on here, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush. If you can ever stop, this is one of those steps where I like to just keep tweaking. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I think I'm going to sign this one in the bottom left corner. I will be using black paint. I'm using my small brush. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like to be your identifying mark is totally fine. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you painted yourself a very fun summer image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.